Hey guys, this is Dave with AudioWin, and this is the new DUNU DaVinci, of course. This is a collaboration between DUNU and Timmy from GIZAUDIO, and they've priced this at $299. Now, if you happened to watch my most recent video, you'll know that I chose the Tantrum Origin as my favorite $300 release for 2024. Well, I may have to amend that slightly. Included in the box are the IEMs and cable. It also comes with a case, and since the cable is modular, they've also included two termination options, a 3.5 single-ended and a 4.4 balanced. And again, these are interchangeable terminations. Also included is a cleaning tool, a 3.5 to 6.35 adapter, and a killer assortment of ear tips, and not just any ear tips. These are actually two of some of my favorite ear tips, the DUNU S&S tips and then the candy tips. So that is pretty awesome. And again, it's priced at $299, which is less than I expected. It has a hybrid driver configuration consisting of two dynamic drivers. One is a 10mm, the other an 8mm, and then four balanced armature drivers. The drivers are housed in a high quality skin-friendly resin shell, but what's cool is on the inside, it uses a 5-way crossover, and then each dynamic driver has its own separate acoustic chamber. Now, one of the things that I've always loved about the DUNU SA6 lineup was the stabilized wood faceplate, because it brings a simple but very gorgeous organic element into the mix, and I love that because they chose to bring that back with the DaVinci. There's just something special about incorporating a little bit of nature into a design that makes it look a little higher end, but even more importantly, it simply looks stunning and it's just lovely to look at. So the design is excellent, but on the practical side, it's also shaped very nicely on the inside. And while I would say it is on the larger side, it's still shaped so that it rests nicely, at least in my ears. Plus, again, with the S&S tips, I get a deep fit and just an excellent seal. So the shell is, again, it's a little on the larger side, but they've still managed to design it so that it provides a comfortable and secure fit. Now, the Leo cable is also really nice, and from what I understand, it was specifically designed for the DaVinci, and from an aesthetics perspective, it matches the DaVinci perfectly, in my opinion, but it's also just a well-built and easy to manage cable. It's not the softest cable I've seen at this price, but it really is soft enough, and more importantly, it is easy to manage. It's easy to roll up, and I haven't had any issues with tangling. So it's well built, it's manageable, and it looks very, very nice with the IEMs. As a matter of fact, the whole package, from the IEMs, the cable, to the included case, the wide assortment of ear tips, for this price point, it's very good. And you can tell that DUNU and Timmy put a lot of thought into this package. Nicely done. Okay, let's move on to the sound. So first, let me just say this to all of those who went out and purchased a Tantrum Origin based on my recommendation from my recent Best of 2024 video. You still made a very good choice, especially if you prefer dynamic driver IMs over balanced armature IMs. And it is also a little less expensive as well. All that said, if the DaVinci had been released, I would have chosen it over the Origin. Okay, let's jump into the sound breakdown of the DaVinci. So the DaVinci's sound signature strikes me as being very balanced, but with some warmth, which is exactly how I've heard others describe it. So you have a bass shelf that starts right around 200 hertz, then it's pretty linear, maybe slightly tilted in favor of the low mids, but basically linear from about 220 hertz to 1K, and then that rise into the upper mids or the Pina starts right around 1K, and then that peaks out at 2.8K, and then the treble energy starts slowly but naturally to decline. Now, the first time I put these in my ears, the first thing that struck me about its presentation was how rich it was, and then the second thing was how natural it sounded. Not that it was overly rich or overly warm sounding, it was still nice and clean and quite balanced overall. And then my attention kind of switched over to the bass because I was listening for bass bleed into the mids and I couldn't hear any, which is no surprise because I know Timmy pays close attention to that. But let's go ahead and break the sound down a little further and let's go ahead and start here with the bass. So in terms of just pure bass quantity, it's more than what you would typically see in some of the competition like the Dusk 2, at least in its default tuning, the Origin, Falcon Ultra, Performer 8, and it's even a little more than some of the slightly more expensive IMs like the Studio 4 and Elysian. So its bass presentation is definitely going to be less polite than what you would typically see in a more neutral style bass presentation. It has excellent extension, excellent dynamics and slam, and you also have a little more mid-bass and low mid-range presence as well, giving you that really nice mid-bass punch, and also that contributes to some of the richness and warmth I was picking up on. But I need to reiterate, I didn't hear any bass bleed. That transition from the bass into the mids was handled very well. So you have a clear distinction between the bass and the mids, which means no muddiness, and the mids maintain really good clarity and resolution. So you've got just enough warmth to bring some weight to the presentation, but not so much as to muddy up the sound. But I do need to point out that there is no doubt this is dynamic driver bass, so it's going to have all of the good dynamic driver qualities like good dynamics, again, good slam and punch, and it's going to have that physicality, and it's going to give you that visceral sensation that you typically can't get from BA bass. But what it's not going to give you is a lot of speed like you would get again from BA bass. Not that it's slow or overly bloated sounding, it's just not going to have as much detail and texture as you might get in something like the Studio 4. And then as you move into the mid-range, it's mostly, again, linear all the way from about 200 hertz until about 1K. But like I had said earlier, that line from about 200 to 1K is kind of favoring the low mids, and that does contribute to weightier presentation. And it also has a tactility to its presentation that makes instruments and vocals just sound real. I don't know how to say it. And it gives them a naturalness and again, a physicality that you don't see very often in this price range. And then as you move into the upper mids, you have a very natural, gradual rise or transition into the pinna gain or the ear gain region around 2.8K that contributes even further to the DaVinci's natural instrument and vocal reproduction. And this is where I think some of the real magic takes place, because the vocal energy is just about where I like it. Not too forward, but it's not too relaxed either. So it has enough energy to maintain focus, but it's not dominating the mix. But again, what I can't get over is just how natural vocals and instruments sound. And I know I bring this up all the time, but the saxophone off of the Jazz at the Pawn Shop recording sounds just so nice and rich on this set. It's simply beautiful. Now, as you move into the treble, that natural presentation carries right through. So cymbals, hi-hats, while still maintaining nice amounts of energy and excitement, they come across as controlled and again, nice and natural sounding. And it also has adequate amounts of upper treble presence as well. So if you have a live recording or any recording that has that air and shimmer, the DaVinci will reveal that. And that also helps to reveal some of those micro details as well. And it never gets peaky either. But speaking of detail, the technical performance of the DaVinci is very good, easily as good as any IM within this $200 to $300 price range. And in terms of detail, instrument separation, and imaging. So I think you can probably see where this is going as far as where I feel the DaVinci stands among the competition and whether or not I feel the DaVinci is a good value. The DaVinci is, without question, a good value in my book. Now, what I haven't mentioned is that the DaVinci is not exactly to my tuning preference. It's close, but its bass quantity is actually a little above my preference, or at least at the upper end of my preference. But in almost every other area of the tuning, it comes very close. Regardless though, the DaVinci is now my new favorite IM at $300. Now, I'm not going to go as far as saying I like it better than the Studio 4, but I will say I do like it as much as the Performer 8, which is saying something because the Performer 8 is quite special in my opinion. Now, I will admit that DaVinci's bass is more satisfying than that of the Studio 4, probably because it's just a well-implemented dynamic driver. And I always prefer dynamic driver bass over BA bass. So I will give that to the DaVinci, but here's the bottom line. This is a $300 IM that has extremely satisfying bass. It's probably one of the most natural sounding IMs I've heard under $500, coming very close to the Studio 4 and rivaling the Performer 8. And its technical performance is also rivaling the Performer 8 and edging close to the Studio 4. Not to mention, the IMs are also just stunning to look at. So obviously, it gets a very strong recommendation from me. So well done, Timmy, and well done, DUNU. Very, very solid release. So that concludes my review of the DUNU GIZAUDIO DaVinci. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.